Welcome to AI Paper Podcasts. Today, we are launching right into a deep dive on OpenSearch-VL, an open recipe for frontier multimodal search agents.
Authored by an incredible team from Tenzin Hunyuan, UCLA, CUHK, and HKU.
Yeah, exactly. And look, if you just need the rapid-fire one-minute synthesis of this paper before your next stand-up, here's exactly what they achieved. First, they built a completely open-source data engine.
Right, bypassing the massive proprietary data moats.
Yep, by using Wikipedia graph sampling, fuzzy entity rewriting, and source anchor grounding to generate about 36K multi-hop training trajectories.
Which is huge on its own.
It really is. Second breakthrough, they gave the agent active visual perception, so tools like crop, sharpen, perspective correct, and super resolution to actually fix degraded images before reasoning over them.
Which totally changes the game for real-world web environments.
Completely. And third, a major reinforcement learning innovation called multi-turn fatal-aware GRPO. It essentially solves the cascading tool failure problem by mathematically masking post-failure tokens, while, and this is the key part, preserving and rewarding the valid reasoning that happened before the crash.
Using one-sided advantage clamping. Yeah.
Exactly. So the mission here is clear. This paper provides the absolute blueprint to break the monopoly of those closed-source multimodal agents. They open-sourced the entire recipe for a 32 billion parameter model that actually outperforms Gemini 2.5 Pro and Claude 3.7 Sonnet on these tasks.
It's just wild to see an open model do that. And, you know, the necessity of this research really comes down to what we can call the lazy agent problem.
Oh, yeah, the squinting problem.
Right. The AI community generally knows how to build massive multimodal architectures. But the actual bottleneck, the reason your open weight model just takes a wild guess at a blurry receipt and gives up, is a severe lack of training data.
Because high-quality agentic data is basically the ultimate proprietary moat right now.
Exactly. I mean, big tech companies are using armies of human annotators and internal user logs to build that multi-turn data. Without those demonstrations, open models just default to perceptual shortcuts. They basically perform a single forward pass over an image and just stop.
Right, they don't hunt for information. But synthesizing that long horizon data from scratch without human annotators, that requires forcing the AI down a really complex logical path, right?
Yeah, you basically have to build a highly constrained treasure hunt for it. And the OpenSearch-VL team did this by treating English Wikipedia as a massive derivative graph.
Okay, so how does that actually work?
Well, you pick a starting point, a seed entity page that has a representative image, and you force a random walk, like 2 to 4 hops away through the hyperlinks to arrive at an answer node.
Okay, but if you just follow random Wikipedia links, you could end up anywhere. I mean, you could go from a specific species of frog to the page for water and then suddenly to Earth.
Right, and that completely breaks the logic chain. So the constraints on that random walk are the absolute secret sauce here. You cannot just follow any available hyperlink.
They ban certain pages, right?
Exactly. They implemented a strict threshold to avoid what they call hub nodes. If a Wikipedia page has more than 10,000 incoming links, so think of incredibly broad pages like United States, English language, or 21st century, it is completely banned from the path.
Because the second your path hits the United States page, the semantic chain is destroyed.
Right. Millions of unrelated concepts connect there.
So by banning those high traffic nodes, you're forcing the random walk through highly specific, non-trivial connections. You guarantee that the start and end point are genuinely entangled. But wait, a huge problem immediately jumps out at me here.
Legit.
If you sample a path from node A to node B to node C, and you just prompt a frontier language model to turn that path into a trivia question, the model is just going to write a question with all those explicit names right in the text.
It will, yeah.
So if you hand that explicitly named question to your training agent, it's just going to retrieve the final answers straight from its internal weights. It won't use any tool. It's like assigning an open book math test where the final answer is already printed in the prompt text. The agent just copies it.
That is the exact shortcut that ruins most synthetic training data sets. The agent just learns to bypass the tools completely. But to break that shortcut, the paper introduces a brilliant two-stage resolution.
Okay, what's stage one?
Stage one is fuzzy entity rewriting. The data pipeline takes that generated question and progressively masks the intermediate bridge nodes. So the entities connecting the start to the finish, replacing their explicit names with relational descriptors.
Oh, I remember this example from the paper. It's so good. So imagine a path starting at the Australia Zoo page, then hopping to Steve Irwin, and then hopping to Terry Irwin to discover her Australian citizenship date. So instead of asking, When did Terry Irwin, wife of Steve Irwin, become a citizen? The pipeline obscures the intermediate identities. Steve Irwin gets rewritten as the man who took over management in 1991.
Yeah, so the query evolves into, when did the wife of the man who took over management in 1991 become a citizen?
Which is such a weird, specific question.
It is, and that removes the direct semantic trigger from the text. But the second stage source-anchored visual grounding is what really enforces the multimodal tool use.
Right, because it's still just text at that point.
Exactly. So the pipeline takes the name of the starting node, Australia Zoo, and strips it out of the text completely. It replaces it with a visual referring expression.
So it points to an image.
Yes. The final prompt pairs an image of the Australia Zoo entrance sign with the text. On what date did the wife of the man who took over management of the zoo in the image in 1991 become an Australian citizen?
Oh, wow. So the visual anchor is completely decoupled from the final answer. You absolutely cannot answer that with a single web search? You can't. The agent is structurally forced to physically look at the image, read the text on the sign to realize it's the Australia Zoo, then execute a text search to find out who managed it in 1991, discover Steve Irwin, then find his wife's name, and finally search for her citizenship date.
That's a genuine multi-hop reasoning chain.
And by running thousands of these paths through rigorous quality checks, they generated a data set that demands tool use. They actually tested this by using a frozen baseline model. If the baseline could solve the prompt without tools, they threw that data point in the trash.
Wow, okay. So getting the agent to attempt the search is half the battle. But giving it the tools to actually survive the open web is the other half, because in standard academic data sets, visual inputs are, pristine.
Perfectly cropped, high resolution.
Exactly. But out in the wild, you're dealing with skewed photographs of monitors, blurry thumbnails, just incredibly dense screenshots.
And when an input image is unreadable, standard retrieval augmented systems just break down instantly. I mean, they usually just have a basic text search and image search tool. Right, if you can't read the pixels, retrieval logic doesn't matter.
Exactly. So the OpenSearch-VL team addressed this by building a unified tool environment that heavily integrates active visual perception tools.
Yeah, the toolkit is massive. For retrieval, they've got text search using Serper and Jaina, plus a Qwen3 summarization pass for large text. They have image search. But the perception tools change everything. They integrated crop, an OCR tool backed by PaddleX, an unsharp masking tool to sharpen blurry text.
They even have EDSR for super resolution.
Yeah. And perspective correct to auto-rectify skewed images. But I mean, providing those tools is useless if the agent doesn't know when to use them, right?
Exactly. Which brings us to a really brilliant trick they used during the data curation stage. They took 10% of their filtered visual question answering pool and artificially degraded the images.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, they applied Gaussian blur, they downsampled the resolution, and added extreme perspective distortion. So instead of training a model to squint at bad pixels and hallucinate, they're training the model to recognize its own limitations.
It's literally teaching the model to put on its glasses.
That's a perfect analogy. It learns that if a document is skewed, it has to invoke perspective correct before it even attempts an OCR pass. Yeah. It develops this active think with image workflow.
But wait, how does the agent's context window handle all that visual history? Like, if you feed it a skewed low-res image and it calls perspective correct and then it calls crop to isolate a paragraph, is it just overwriting the image each time?
No, and that's critical. The architecture ensures the active visual context grows monotonically.
Okay, so it keeps everything.
Every historical visual observation is strictly preserved and labeled sequentially. Image 1, Image 2, Image 3. So the policy can continuously cross-reference its own visual transformations.
Oh, so it can evaluate the localized crop against the original full-frame context? The forest is never lost for the trees?
Exactly. So now we have this data pipeline, right? We synthesize 36,000 multi-turn expert trajectories, run supervised fine-tuning, and the agent knows how to call tools.
Right. But imitation learning just copies demonstrations. If we want it to discover better search strategies, we need reinforcement learning.
But applying RL to long horizon, multi-turn tool use is notoriously difficult because of cascading failures.
Right. An agent might execute a brilliant plan for 2 turns.
And then on the 3rd turn, it hallucinates a malformed API argument, or a web search just times out.
And once that single error occurs, the agent enters a fatal state. It panics, gets stuck in a loop of errors, and the rest of the trajectory is just garbage opens.
And standard RL handles this in 2 terrible ways. Either you discard the entire trajectory,
Which means you're throwing away the brilliant reasoning from the first two turns.
right, or you train on the entire rollout, which forces massive amounts of noisy garbage gradients from the panic phase into your optimizer.
So how does OpenSearch-VL solve it?
With a technique they call fatal-aware token masking. They define a fatal step index as the exact moment 3 consecutive tool execution errors occur.
3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah. And when the agent hits that threshold, they apply token-level generation masking. They surgically zero out all the tokens generated after that fatal step from the loss calculation. The optimizer is mathematically shielded from the noise.
Okay, wait, let me push back on the math here. Let's dissect the advantage calculation, specifically regarding group relative policy optimization, or GRPO.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it.
Because in GRPO, you sample a group of trajectories for the exact same prompt. You calculate rewards and you normalize them against the group mean, subtract the mean, divide by standard deviation.
Right.
So if a trajectory ultimately crashed and burned, it gets a 0 for final accuracy. Its reward is almost certainly going to fall below the group mean, giving it a negative relative score.
And a negative advantage score pushes the model to suppress whatever behavior led to it.
Exactly. So if we're using the valid mask prefix of that failed run, those first 2 brilliant steps, but the trajectory has a negative score, aren't we mathematically telling the model never use that brilliant logic again? Aren't we punishing the exact behavior we want just because the server timed out?
You hit the exact pathology that ruins standard GRPO in these environments.
Huh. So how do they fix it? Do they just flatline the loss for those prefixes?
They do. They use something called one-sided advantage clamping. For any trajectory flagged as fatal, if its normalized group reward is negative, the algorithm clamps that advantage strictly to 0.
Wow.
The model receives 0 gradient for that prefix. It entirely ignores the run rather than applying an undeserved penalty.
But wait, because it's one-sided clamping, does that imply a failed trajectory can somehow get a positive advantage score?
It absolutely does. If the partial reward of that fatal trajectory's prefix actually exceeds the group mean, the agent receives positive reinforcement for those initial steps.
That is wild.
The empirical data on this is amazing. Out of 10,000 groups, 91.8% of fatal rollouts fell below the mean and were safely clamped to 0. But the remaining 8.2% of fatal runs actually scored higher than the group mean.
So the algorithm is recovering highly valuable learning signals from that top 8.2% instead of throwing them away.
Exactly.
But wait, getting a partial reward that beats the group mean implies you aren't just measuring final accuracy. A crashed run has 0 final accuracy. You need a really sensitive way to grade the process itself.
Right. Outcome-driven rewards are way too sparse here. So the authors engineered a multi-turn composite reward structure. It operates as a multiplier. The baseline is a format reward, which is binary, 0 or 1.
Did it emit a think block followed by a valid tool call block?
Exactly. If the formatting is broken, the multiplier is 0. Everything collapses.
And assuming the format is perfect.
Then the reward is a weighted sum. It uses 80% accuracy, judged by GPT-4o, checking against the ground truth, and 20% query quality, judged by a proprietary reasoning model, GPT-5.4.
Ah, so that GPT 5.4 process-level judge is what allows a crashed run to score well.
Yes. It evaluates the valid prefix on 4 strict dimensions. First, semantic relevance. Second, logical progression. Did the queries narrow down the search space? Third, signal-to-noise ratio in the retrieved payloads. And fourth, cross-modal complementarity.
Which means, did it use text and image tools together seamlessly?
Exactly.
That perfectly explains how a failed run gets into the top 8.2%. If a prompt is super difficult, the whole group struggles, dragging the mean down. If one agent executes 2 brilliant steps, gets great signal to noise, but then hits a timeout on the 3rd call, its query quality score is high enough to beat that dismal group mean.
And thanks to one-sided clamping, the model learns to replicate that exploratory strategy.
That massive efficiency gain in RL translates directly to the benchmarks, right?
Absolutely staggering performance. They evaluated on 7 multimodal deep search benchmarks like InfoSeek, Vision Deep Research, MMSearch. The 30 billion parameter version, built on Qwen3VL, saw an average improvement of 13.8 points over its foundation.
That's a huge jump.
On MMSearch alone, it jumped 24.5 points. But the 32 billion parameter dense model is the real standout. It hit an average score of 63.7. To put that in context, Gemini 2.5 Pro scored 46.0 and Claude 3.7 Sonnet scored 32.9.
Wait, really? We're looking at an open weights 32B model, fundamentally beating proprietary models that are hundreds of times larger.
It is incredible. And the Keswick Bridge case study in the paper really grounds all these abstract numbers.
Oh, walk us through that one.
So the prompt gives the agent an image of a bridge and simply asks, in what year did this bridge open?
Which a standard model would just guess at. It would look at the architecture, guess the geography, and hallucinate a year.
Exactly. But the OpenSearch-VL agent verifies. Its thought transcript is basically a masterclass in investigation. It spots a tiny road sign in the foreground, explicitly notes the text is too small to read, and for its first action, it invokes the crop tool.
Passing the exact coordinates of the sign to isolate it.
Right, like a human squinting at a distant sign.
The environment returns the high-res crop. The agent reads the sign, sees Inverness, realizes it still doesn't know the bridge's name. Action 2. It switches tools, calls image search, and feeds it the cropped image for a reverse lookup.
An image search identifies it as the Keswick Bridge. Semantic entity acquired.
Then it seamlessly switches modalities again. Action 3. Text search for Keswick Bridge opening year, when did it open? The environment returns a Wikipedia snippet, and the agent confidently outputs 1982.
Crop, image search, text search. It chained visual attention, visual retrieval, and textual evidence perfectly.
That trajectory is exactly what the data pipeline and the RL rewards were designed to incentivize.
Yes. And by releasing the SFT datasets, the RL datasets, the code, the models, the authors have reduced the reproducibility barrier to zero.
They really democratized frontier multimodal search. But, as I look at the architecture of these agents, there's a massive limitation here that kind of offers a glimpse into the next frontier.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Well, the paper explicitly notes that their multi-turn composite reward relies on proprietary models like GPT-4o and GPT-5.4, and those models only evaluate the textual search strings.
Oh, right. They're essentially blind to the intermediate visual operations.
Exactly. The judge doesn't inherently understand if a specific crop coordinate was mathematically optimal or if the sharpen tool was applied perfectly. We're grading a deeply multimodal trajectory using a text-based rubric.
It's a huge blind spot in the training loop.
So, for everyone listening, here's something to mull over. If you are building the next generation of these systems, consider what happens when we replace those proprietary text judges with fully open, multimodal process reward models.
Models that can actually see and evaluate the visual action space itself.
Right. If the reward signal could explicitly grade how well the agent put on its glasses, how perfectly it aligned the perspective correction, the ceiling for spatial and visual reasoning would just completely vanish.
That's the next paradigm, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, the OpenSearch-VL GitHub repo and Hugging Face links are live, packed with the data sets. It is time to let the agents do the work. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on AI Paper Podcasts.